Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. We bring in a well-known attorney this week.
Yes, we're really pleased this week to bring in the new president of the Oklahoma Bar Association, a longtime friend of mine, Garvin Issacs. Garvin is well known in the legal community, being an outstanding lawyer in all phases of the law, but particularly criminal defense. He's done wonderful work there. He has been, as I say, recently elected as president of the Oklahoma Bar. He just started serving in January. And he's going to be talking to us on a number of topics, including what I would call the assault on the judiciary. Those are my words, not his. But there's an all-out assault on the judiciary and the Judicial Nominating Commission, and Garvin's going to talk to us about that.
All right, Garvin Issacs, today's guest on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
I've always been a public servant. I've served either tribes, I've served the federal government, or I've served state governments. The law allows me to express my natural desire to advocate. My name is Stephanie Cochran. I am an attorney and I am Chickasaw. Lawyers give their clients, and in my case, tribal governments, a voice. And it's through legal decisions that tribes have been able to accomplish and to regain some much lost footing that they encountered in the late 1800s and the 1900s. When I reflect back on this time in history, I think I'll look at it in terms of opportunity. And I think now we have to turn those opportunities into long-term success for our future generations.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
It is such a personal pleasure for me to welcome to the set of The Verdict an old friend, Garvin Issacs. Known Garvin many, many years, and we've had a fun association with each other. Garvin did his undergraduate work at TCU, did his law work at Oklahoma City University. Following his basketball playing days at Apache, he went and continued it with TCU, and then went on to play professional basketball in the New England Basketball League for a number of years, and then decided, for reasons he can tell you about, to come back and go to law school and become a lawyer. Everything he's done very well, basketball on up. He was an assistant district attorney here in Oklahoma County. He was an assistant public defender here in Oklahoma County, and he's been in private practice many years. Garvin, we really do appreciate you coming and visiting with us.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here with you and Kent. This is
Well, appreciate you taking the time to come over. And let's go back to that basketball career. You fairly high-profile Division I athlete, played some professional basketball. Let people know exactly what you were doing in those days.
Well, after my college days, where I was really disappointed in what happened, although my best friend James Cash was the first black athlete in the Southwest Conference, and then Cash decided he was going to Purdue to get a PhD in computer science, and he became the first black professor at Harvard Business School, associate dean. And he and I look back on those basketball days. We learned a lot about racism, playing in the Mobile Classic in '66. I'll never forget that. And we were the only team with black players. Played Auburn and Alabama. And then when I was in Connecticut playing basketball, Cliff Hagan had told me when he cut me from Dallas Chaparral's ABA team, where I was a tryout, walk-on, he said, I told Hagan I was going to go to law school, and he said, do yourself a favor, play for a couple more years. If you don't make it, go to law school. Don't wind up being a drunk sitting in a bar talking about when you're a basketball player. Then when I was in Connecticut playing, we played a team in a tournament in Port Chester, New York, on the day after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and that's when I knew what I was going to do, and it was a turning point.
In what way? Why did that affect you so much?
It really, I was a freshman at TCU when President Kennedy was assassinated, and I'll never forget that because I always admired President Kennedy as one of the great leaders and what he did in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And you guys remember that, and a lot of the viewers will too. And when Kennedy was assassinated, that just broke my heart. And we found out he was dead while we were out warming up for the practice that afternoon. And Johnny Swaim, the freshman coach, came out and said, "Practice is over, the president's dead." And we'd been watching it all morning. And then in Connecticut, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, that's another moment that really hit me like a train. I admired both of those guys as great leaders.
Yeah, and so you wind up though as defending those who are charged with crimes. What led you into that area?
I got a legal intern's license when I was in law school, and I went down and worked at the Oklahoma County Public Defender's Office, and I'd tried 9 misdemeanors before I ever got out of law school, and I didn't realize that not very many people even did that. and I was into it, thinking about it.
It was a big case to you.
Well, yeah, every one of them, and it just that was an experience. And every case is different. No two cases are alike, and you really get into it mentally.
Did you get any of those guys off of their misdemeanor?
Yes, but I lost one where a woman was charged with petty larceny of the where there was a Safeway over by the medical school, and she'd gone in and stolen a can of ham. And I'll never forget, I was cross-examining the guy that was in there who was the eyewitness to her stealing a can of ham. And I said, "Well, what is it that attracted you to this woman with the can of ham?" He said, "Well, she turned a cartwheel when she came through the door." And I thought, oh my God, I learned you better know what you're doing. And when the police arrested her, she was laying down at 47th and Lincoln Boulevard with 5 cans of ham around her. Stuff like that.
Should have pled that one out.
That's right. Yeah. But we learned from those things.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, you're the current president of the
Yes.
Oklahoma Bar Association, and congratulations, by
Thank
the way, both to
you.
you and the bar for electing you. Why did you decide to run? That's a position you have to run for, and it's at least a 3-year commitment of service when you get elected president, although you're only president for a year. Why did you decide to do that?
The thing that really was a turning point for me was when it was announced that the legislature would try to abolish the Judicial Nominating Commission. It caused me to flashback when I was in high school down at Apache, and we had the Supreme Court scandal in the 60s, the late 60s, when Napoleon Bonaparte, Johnson, Nelson Welch, and Judge Corn were all involved in bribery and in tax evasion, and 2 of them went to prison, and one was impeached. And that was a turning point for me as a student when Gwen Miller, my high school history teacher, talked about that for at least 25% of the time that we were in class that year, and how important it is that we have a court that people trust, because we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And Gwen Miller hammered that into our head, that what Lincoln said at the Gettysburg Address is the way this country was founded. And you go back and read that, you read Jefferson and you read Adams and you read the Federalist Papers, that's what the whole country's founded upon. And so when this comes out that they're going to abolish the Judicial Nominating Commission, I was shocked. We have not had any appellate court judges sent to prison for bribery or for income tax evasion since the creation of the JNC. The only
Which
judge,
was shortly after the Supreme Court
That's
scandal.
right.
Yeah.
And what I remember too was Burke Bailey, who was president of the Oklahoma Bar back some years ago. Burke's quote to the national news media was, "These were campaign contributions. That was the defense used in those cases." Mm-hmm. And Burke hit it right on the nose, because we don't need we now have the Citizens United case out of the United States Supreme Court, which is not based upon the history of our country. And if we don't stand up for people, Citizens United allows unlimited campaign contributions by political action committees. They never have to reveal where the money comes from. If we as people and lawyers don't stand up for the Constitution and a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we're going to live in an oligarchy, and we got to do it now.
Let me ask you
And
this.
that's why I decided to run.
Well, excuse me, I'm glad you did. Let me ask you this. Today, and for all my memory, we have elected the district judges.
Yes.
That have to run.
Yes.
And presumably can get campaign contributions.
Yes, sir.
This new proposal would be to elect appellate judges.
Yes, sir.
Courts of Appeals, Courts of Criminal Appeals, Supreme Court. And they presumably would have to run and receive campaign contributions. So the argument on the other side of that is that, well, we're doing it now with district judges. Why isn't that okay for appellate judges? How do you respond to that?
The appellate court oversees every part of the judicial branch in Oklahoma, and the funding for the court system is well below what it's ever been. We don't have court reporters in remote areas of Oklahoma. We don't have bailiffs in courthouses in Oklahoma. We've got to have more money appropriated, and as president of the Oklahoma Bar, I want to advocate that we uphold public confidence in the judicial system, and that the public know we got a Supreme Court that's going to overview any appeal from any judicial branch of government, and that court is composed of honest, intelligent people. And our Supreme Court today is. We've got a good bunch.
Garvin Issacs is a defense attorney in Oklahoma City. He's the president of the Oklahoma Bar Association. We'll have more with Garvin right after this.
Clean air, water, and land. Abundant American energy. You don't have to choose one or the other. Because for Oklahoma and America's future, both matter. That's why Oklahoma's oil and natural gas producers share valuable 3D seismic data with regulators and scientists, leading to better views of Oklahoma's diverse geology and more insights into protecting our land. Learn more about these efforts at oerb.com/bothmatter.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers and our guest, Garvin Issacs. Garvin, are we experiencing an assault on the judiciary?
We are, and it's coming from all over. And we need to look back at history and see that our Supreme Court, since the creation of the Judicial Nominating Commission, has been a court of honesty and integrity, and that we have, since that time, been a judicial branch of government that upholds public confidence in the judicial system. And the people of Oklahoma need to be proud of that fact.
What would come in if the Judicial Nominating Commission were abolished as is being proposed? What would be put in its place, as you understand it?
All judges would run for election and would be voted upon. And then we would have the Citizens United Unlimited campaign contributions by the PACs. We would know where the money came from because they don't have to reveal it. And that is giving government away from the people to the money.
My memory of some of the discussions in this area on distinguishing between district court judges' elections and appellate court judges' elections runs kind of like this. With the district court judges being elected in their home communities,
yes,
the voters know a lot more about those folks. They've grown up with them, gone to high school with them. Bless you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I didn't mean to get you so excited here, but knew exactly who to vote for. They
yes.
they weren't confused. On the other hand, if you ask voters around the state to vote on particular judges seeking election, if you will, to the appellate courts, they won't have any idea about how to evaluate the various candidates.
That is precisely the basis for our plan and why we have the JNC. The local people know candidates for local judicial offices. They know them better than anybody. And the JNC is there to vet, to investigate, and ensure that the people who are the three names they send to the governor are three qualified, honest, competent lawyers.
We hear on the news some pretty, pardon the pun, inflammatory remarks made by some legislators, both on the floor of the legislature in session and off the floor outside and standing in front of a building. Is there, in your view as a lawyer, is there any, and the legislators saying this many times are lawyers, is there any limit at all on what a lawyer can say about a judge?
Yes, all of us swear under oath that we're going to uphold and promote public confidence in the judicial branch. We don't make false accusations, and it's not our position to attack a judge simply because we want to abolish the JNC.
Or don't like the decision.
Or don't like his decision. If you don't like the decision, go do your homework and appeal it to a higher court, or ask for a rehearing, or advise the court as a group what the error was in a motion to reconsider the decision.
Well, go ahead, Nick.
Well, I was just going to say, so my take is that there is a movement at the state legislature to try and change the current system we've had?
Yes.
And where's that coming from? House, the Senate?
It's coming from the House, and it's there, and we'll see what happens.
Is this from the right part of the state legislature, the far right? Or
I wouldn't say it was from the far right, or I'd just say it was from the legislature.
Mm-hmm. And what are they basing this on? Why do they think that's a good idea?
I think a lot of people are angry about the ruling on the 10 Commandments, and I think a lot of people have seen that. And in the times that I've been asked about it, one of the people that is advocating this is Kevin Calvey. Mr. Calvey's a lawyer, and he was advocating.
And a representative.
And a representative. He said publicly that we had two judges, Judge Lyle from the Court of Criminal Appeals and Judge Thompson. I'm sorry, Judge Don Thompson from Sapulpa was an elected Creek County district judge, and Thompson's actions, which were off the scale improper, resulted in him being charged with felonies and convicted, sent to prison. And we upheld the judicial branch of government with that because nobody's above the law. Not a district judge, not a Supreme Court judge, and not lawyers.
Now, we've made some changes in recent years to how what makes up the Judicial Nominating Commission with the addition of more non-lawyers
Yes.
than we had before. We always have had a system where there would be more non-lawyers than lawyers on the commission, but that's even expanded considerably in recent years. Are there other tweaks or changes that you would recommend be considered?
I think if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And it works. And we've got a history of having good people come out of the JNC to the governor. And when that works, then we need to stay with it.
All right, we'll give some contact information later in the show. People that have an opinion on it can contact you. I know you've also had some work in getting people who were innocent but yet jailed for a crime and gotten their convictions overturned. Can you kind of give us some history on that?
Oh, I was so focused on my clients that I did not realize what Joyce Gilchrist and Bob Macy were doing. And when I realized that Joyce Gilchrist was sending innocent people to prison, it shocked me.
Remind the viewers who she was and what her job was.
She was a chemist that worked at the Oklahoma City Police Department back when Bob Macy was in office. The first case I ever had with her was a case involving a young man who was charged with murder. And keep in mind, she's a chemist. She knows blood. She knows how to gather the blood. She gets on the witness stand and they qualify her as a gunshot wound expert. And I told Judge Cook, I said, they didn't give me any gunshot wound reports. I want a 2-hour continuance so I can go back to my office, get ready to cross-examine her. So he did. And, she's up there saying, I can tell by the punctate powder wounds around the ear that Kerry Foster murdered his wife. And I thought, what? And go back, and so I get DeMayo and DeMayo, which is the textbook, the learned treatise on gunshot wounds. I come back to the courthouse at 1:30, and I said, you're a gunshot wound? Oh, yeah. I said, well, you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who DeMayo and DeMayo are. I don't know, never heard of them. And by the time I got through cross-examining her with the learned treatise on gunshot wounds, by the two outstanding gunshot wound experts from San Antonio, the jury was laughing at her. So I kind of thought, this woman's a joke. Then later, I am called Barry Scheck's friend of mine who's with the Innocence Project New York. Scheck called me and said, you need to go to jail and talk to Robert Miller. I said, yeah, and asked him about it. He told me, well, he's been on death row 8.5 years. I go over, and they had done DNA and found that Joyce Gilchrist had failed to do the DNA in the Fowler and Cutler murder cases.
About 30 seconds left,
Yeah.
but finish your story.
Well, I talked to Robert Miller, knew that he didn't kill anybody, and then watched his 6-hour videotape, what they call confession. There were 112 inconsistencies between it. I did the Robert Miller case for $1. Worked on it for 8 months with Bob Thompson. And after we'd filed our motions, done all that, and got ready to go to trial, Bob Macy dismissed the case. And Miller went out. He's never been in trouble since.
Garvin Issacs, as you can tell, a defense attorney in Oklahoma City, very involved on the legal side and taking leadership roles. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Mick.
Kit
Keep
and I'll
up
have
the
a
good
final
work,
word
Garvin.
when
I'm
we get
with
back.
you guys. Thanks for having me.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
We are a very conservative family, and we believe in old-fashioned family values. We have a loving home there, and we love kids, and we had 5, 6 of our own. And but I had no idea we were going to go into adoption, but it's been very gratifying.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers wrapping up the show with Garvin Issacs.
Yeah, really interesting show, and really pleased to have Garvin on. He's been a friend of mine for many, many years, and everything he has done in his life, he's done in an exemplary fashion. He's a bright, engaging, persuasive fellow, and he's going to do really well as president of the Oklahoma Bar Association. I am just thrilled to remember the time that my daughter Pam was a lawyer and worked with Garvin on the Miller case that he was telling about. But I have utmost respect for him, and I know that whatever he does with the Bar Association is going to be well done.
And he has not forgotten where he came from, and you can tell by his email address. He was a former point guard at Apache High School, and today his email address is apacheoklahoma@gmail.com. So if you'd like to get a hold of Garvin and give him some opinions on what we talked about today, you can do so, apacheoklahoma@gmail.com. And we have a website we'd love for you to go to and tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future edition of The Verdict. It's theverdict.tv. That's going to do it for this week's show. We'll see you next week.